You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
Welcome to the Mammal Watching podcast with me, John Hall in New York.
And me, Charles Foley in Minneapolis. John, it was so good to see you a couple of weeks ago at the British Bird Fair, at the Global Bird Fair.
It was indeed, and it really was a global bird fair, wasn't it? Or should I say global bird and mammal fair? Because I don't know about you, but I was really impressed with the number of people there who had mammal pictures on their stands, the words mammal watching in their posters, advertising. It's big change since I was there a few years ago, and there were so many people there I knew, and it's only when you go to these things you realize sort of how many people we've corresponded with and met in our travels and through the website and the podcast, and a few people I wanted to mention that I enjoyed catching up with. People will know these, I think, in the community. So Adam Riley was there from Rock Jumper. Holly Faithful was working on his stand as well. We met the guys from BirdQuest, people like Pete Morris, Dida Coppenol, the Wild Wing stand with Chris Collins. Richard Webb was there working, and Richard's new book on larger mammals of South America was being promoted. And I really do recommend that book, by the way, for anyone who's got a trip to Latin America coming up. Also on the Wild Wing stand was Ewan Davis, who was representing partly Sanger Lodge. We're hoping that Rod Cassidy from Sanger will be on the podcast before too long. Then there was a Nature Trek team, Andy Tucker, the head of Nature Trek, but we also met Ben Chappell for the first time, who I was very happy wanted to take a selfie with me and Charles, which my daughter doesn't believe, but it's true. He wrote that fantastic Kenya report a year or so ago. We also met a guy called George Vincent from Nature Trek, who had some hot intel on bush dogs, which I'm following up with. Let's see if it comes to be. Then there's Moet Agarwal from Asian Adventures, Keith Barnes from Tropical Birding, Chavez Chima from One Stop Borneo. And then there were the exhibitors like Zeiss, Pulsar, and then local guides, who many of you will know. Udi Hettich from Sri Lanka was there, Marcel Gavensky from Argentina, Enrico Cuve from Chile. And then, of course, people wandering around, friends, Phil Telfer from the UK, John Wright from the UK, Martin Royal, Royal Safaris, Mike Richardson, also from the UK, Kevin Bryant, the list goes on, but there were a lot of people there, of people to talk to. And Charles and I gave a talk, and I think it went pretty well, mainly because of Charles, and also a lot more people than I was expecting. There must have been, what, Charles? 100 people there, do you think? Am I exaggerating?
Actually, I think it's more like a couple of hundred, but yeah.
A couple of hundred. There we go. I wouldn't imagine. We've hit the big time.
Yeah, well, it was great. Walking around with you, John, it's like walking around with a pope, right? And people will like come up to you and genuflect, and then they'll say, "Hey, Charles, can you just hold my bag while I have a picture taken with John?" It was marvelous, wonderful to see. You are a superstar, John.
I don't know about that, but yes, it was fun. I'm certainly surprised how many people recognize this. The Mammal Watching T-shirt may have helped, but yeah.
Yes, that's right. We had you, of course, had Mammal Watching T-shirts made up. And the first day I had put mine on and you were going to wear yours, and we suddenly realized that we would have looked like Tweedledum and Tweedledee if we'd been walking around wearing those. So fortunately, I think you ditched yours.
Yeah, we took it in turns, didn't we?
Anyway, it was great.
Good.
It was a really fun trip, and it's just so good to see all the people again that we've traveled with in the past, etc.
So much enthusiasm for the future as well. So many people with great stories, which I'm sure some of them will come onto the podcast at some point. Now, Charles, when I was in the UK, one souvenir I did not bring back to the US with me was a freeze-dried bat. And I hear you've been reading all about this trade.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, I must admit. So I was reading an article recently about this trade, sort of bat souvenirs, and apparently these freeze-dried bats are being imported from abroad and sold in the US on many of the big platforms like Amazon, eBay, and Etsy. So, as I said, I had no idea this was a thing, but apparently it is. And one of the common species being traded is Cerevula picta, which is otherwise known as the woolly painted bat, which has beautiful orange and black fur. But many species are actually offered for sale, including Hipposiderus, Taphozous, and various types of fruit bats. And These specimens are being sold by a variety of importers in the US, but most of them seem to originate from East Asia, so notably from Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Now, most species of bats, including Caravula picta, have not been evaluated for inclusion in international trade regulations. However, in most countries where Caravula picta occurs, including Indonesia and Vietnam, it's illegal to hunt either that species or any bat species. So therefore, it's illegal to trade it in the US under the Lacey Act, which prohibits the importation and sale of wildlife that was unlawfully obtained in its home country. And I don't know if there's a similar law in Europe, but I suspect there probably is. So the trade is actually legal, but obviously still going on. And anyway, I was quite surprised to learn that this is happening. And again, I think it just highlights that as mammal watchers, we do need to be a little bit careful about drawing attention to specific locations of some species, particularly in places like East Asia, where even fairly obscure species might be traded.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I saw a note just yesterday on Facebook, an article from, I guess, a Malaysian newspaper or media site saying poachers are hijacking birders' forums to find out where to see things like hornbills to grab them, to poach them. So, yeah, you never know. I just find it extraordinary that, notwithstanding the legislation, that it's extraordinary that in the US you can't bring pasteurized cheese into the US. You can't even bring Spanish ham in. They make a big point on the plane to tell you not to bring in your ham on if you come back from Spain, but you can import freeze-dried bats. It makes no sense. And I know this is something that Fiona Reed's been on the warpath about for a while. She's posted on Facebook a few times about this and asked people to follow up with companies. And the response, I followed up with a couple of companies that were selling these things, and the response I got was, "Oh no, these are raised in captivity. They don't count," which is absolute nonsense, of course.
Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult one because, on the one hand, by promoting sites where you can see wildlife, you can make a difference on the ground by bringing in income to the local communities and have them protect an area. But equally, if it's an animal that is traded or is potentially part of the wildlife trade, then it could have a negative impact. And it's not always clear exactly what species are susceptible to this. I would not have expected your regular old Hipposiderus bat to be a traded species, but indeed it is.
Wow. All right, so now for the main guest. Today's episode is all about the C's, the letter C, as Sesame Street might do. It's about Colombia, it's about conservation, it's about communities, it's even a bit about cetaceans. And so who better than to talk about this than another C, Claudia Diaz, who many of you will know from Wild About Colombia, the ecotour company that has been running some fantastic mammal watching trips through Colombia for the past few years. And Claudia is one half of Wild About Colombia, along with Rob Smith. They set up the company a few years ago. So Claudia is Colombian. She's born and raised in Bogota, but despite her urban upbringing, she had a passion for nature and a love of wildlife from an early age that led her to study marine biology. After finishing her degree, she headed to Baja California, Mexico, and spent 12 years there, many of which were spent aboard boats studying the great whales of the Sea of Cortez. And Claudia, while she was down there, also completed a master's degree in marine science and became involved with conservation projects, environmental education, and fundraising for nonprofits. All these experiences led her to enroll in a conservation leadership master's degree at the University of Cambridge, with a long-term goal of returning to her native Colombia to apply that knowledge and experience in the conservation of her country's biodiversity while improving the livelihoods of local communities through sustainable wildlife tourism. Claudia, it's lovely to see you. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, John. Thank you very much for that introduction. That's very generous of you.
Hey, Claudia, very good to meet
Hi,
you.
Charles. Nice to meet you too.
So, Claudia, how did you first get interested in wildlife and conservation?
Well, my history or the story of how I got into it is not very romantic. Like people normally have a lot of nice, beautiful stories of going with their families on traveling or safaris or national parks or mine isn't like that at all. I had an urban upbringing. My family is very urban focused. I think I got from them the love for animals, but mainly pets. Like I never really traveled when I was a kid, or I was never in touch with wildlife. But it was something that I had. I don't know. I always loved it. I always dreamed of seeing large mammals, marine mammals. I knew that I wanted to be around animals. It made sense that I made a living being in like contact with animals. They've always given me a type of like vital energy I don't get anywhere else. So I always thought of getting into veterinary school, but yeah, I always cried seeing an injured animal or any animal in distress. So I gave up that idea like pretty soon in my life. And biology seemed like the next reasonable choice. And so I studied marine biology. And from there, I just kept going. One thing led to another.
And you spent several years in Baja California. I think it was 12, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
12 to 13.
12 to 13, doing marine mammal research. So what was that like?
It was amazing. Well, like I said, I studied marine biology, but then in Colombia, obviously, I was brought up during the 80s and 90s, and it wasn't very easy to get into animal research. The theme in Colombia at that time was the internal war. We couldn't travel to many places, so the possibility of me going and studying in the Pacific coast or just getting too deep into the marine mammal research was not very. I mean, the chances weren't great. So I looked to study somewhere else, or after I finished my degree, my 4 years of like compulsory course, I got in touch with somebody in Mexico, in Baja California Sur, and I went and started with sea lions. That was a little research I did for a year to get my marine mammal degree. And at that time, I wanted whales. So during that time, I started contacting the marine mammal labs, and I was very fortunate to be accepted by the local university's marine mammal lab in La Paz, which is where I was living. And I started a master's at the National University of Mexico, but with my field work being supervised and by the local university. I focused my studies in a resident population of fin whale in the Gulf of California. I spent 2 years doing my master's, collecting data, being at sea. Yeah, it was a wonderful time.
Is that a well-known place for fin whales?
There's a resident population there. So yeah, it's there's also a population in the Pacific coast of Baja, of Mexico. But this one in the Gulf is a resident one, similar to the one in the Mediterranean seas.
And presumably you must have seen some other quite interesting marine mammal species.
Oh yeah, I had an amazing time. It was an incredible few years. So I studied for 2 years for my master's, but after that, I stayed at the Marine Mammal Lab working as a field technician or assistant for probably 4 to 5 more years. So yeah, I got to see incredible wildlife in the Sea of Cortez. I saw all sorts of behavior, which is what I love the most. Large whales, also dolphins. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any particular highlights that you remember or that really stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. When I was looking at working with sperm whales, we always had amazing sightings, always had amazing experiences. They're very social animals, and they display in groups. So it's always great sightings. No, you can see adults, you can see females, males, you can see youngsters, and we saw them feeding on giant squid. I think I told you, John, that once that we had a sighting of a very large male coming out of the water with a squid wrapped all over its head.
Amazing.
And
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, that was like that was amazing. I also loved humpback whales in competitive groups. That's something that I think you can only see if you're doing research, if you have research permits, and if you're spending a lot of time with the animals. They have like this amazing, I don't know, energy, and they're competing for a female, and the behavior again is just something incredible that you wouldn't see as a tourist, or you wouldn't see as like I mean, you would never see that unless you're doing some research. long hours.
In the world of humpback whale dating, what does a male have to do to get a female? What's the attractive quality when they're doing this competition?
They have to be very strong and fast.
Okay.
and be very perseverant. Do you say that?
Yeah.
Because it's long hours. I don't know, 4 males probably are competing with you, chasing after the female, and there's a lot of energy and power and like struggle, and you see them like fighting. You see noises, like incredible noises that you can't see are coming out of a whale. So yeah,
probably a good job you and I are not whales and John. I think we're at the bottom of the pile.
I can do the incredible noises. That's about it. Normally when I get out of bed in the morning. Yeah.
So, Claudia, you then went to Cambridge to do a master's degree. So how did that shape your work?
Well, after I did my master's in Mexico and worked with whales for those years, living out of that kind of work in Latin America is not easy, and it's not really. I mean, it's not easy for people to get a stable job and make a living and all of that. I enrolled with a nonprofit that was one of the partners for this marine mammal lab. And I worked in communications and in fundraising for the nonprofit. And I started getting like, I wanted to study again. And I loved the work that I did there, and like changing from studying and doing research into like, or a more applied field within marine mammals. I just wanted to do some more studies in conservation and knowing what was happening in the rest of the world, how people manage different aspects of conservation in that field. So I applied to the University of Cambridge to this program that I think it's probably now 10 years old, but at that time, I think it was very new. I think they had only run it for a year or two. So I applied, and I got in, and I got a scholarship. So I quit my job and I went there. And it was amazing. It was a really, really incredible experience for me. The master's is great, but also it's just the fact that I was studying with 22 of us, I think, from 16 different nationalities. So, and one of the like requirements to apply to the program was that you had to be already a little bit into your conservation career. So it's not for people who just came out of college or university. Like you had to have at least, I think, 5 years of experience working in something related to conservation. You didn't have to be a biologist. You could be a lawyer, you could be a journalist, you could be, anything as long as your work was related to conservation. And again, that was something completely new for me. I had been, for many, many years on research. And then those 3 years that I worked for the nonprofit, I saw a different angle to conservation. But this completely broadened it, like even more. And it was, like I was saying, like seeing all those people my age working in Africa, in Asia, just things that I didn't know, or I never really like sit to think about, like all of those conservation issues all over the world.
Sounds transformative. It really does. And you said as well, apart from all that, you also got to meet David Attenborough. He came in.
So the master's is made in collaboration with the University of Cambridge. I'm not sure if this is accurate, but I think like 6 or 7 different international nonprofits, like very large nonprofits. And I don't know how many departments of the university, and obviously a lot of the work that David Attenborough has done, like he's an icon in conservation. So they wanted to do this building in his name, in his honor. And they invited him when they opened it. And we got to spend I think it was a full morning with him. He came into our class and sat down with us, talked about our projects and what we were doing. So yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, wonderful. I hope some of the people who are involved in organizations that funded this course are listening, because I think they'll be very happy to hear you speaking about it like this. Sounds fantastic.
I hope
so after the master's degree, you returned to Colombia, and together with Rob Smith, you set up Wild About Colombia, a tour agency. Can you talk a bit about what the company does, your vision behind the company, its links to conservation?
Sure. So we started Wild About Colombia back in 2017. When I finished the master's, we went to Colombia. I had a couple of jobs, was like acclimatizing to the new country. We had this idea for a while since we were in the UK of building this company, but we weren't very sure of how we wanted to focus it or how we wanted to like start it or yeah. But then once we were in Colombia and we saw how the country was doing after the sign of the peace agreement, we started giving it like a more shape, and it made sense like with our background. While I was at the university, like my part-time job was always related to tourism. I was a guide, I was a ground handler, and but it was always like a part-time, like my side job too. And Rob had been in the tourism business for many years, and his recent years were focused on wildlife. So it made sense, like, you know, with our combined skills, we thought we could really do something. When we thought about doing wildlife tourism, my thing was always mammals. No, it had been before when I studied. So yeah, I was really pushing for the mammals.
Mhm.
Rob's the passion were birds. He also loved mammals. So we said, let's try it. Up until that point, I think there had been tour operators who had reported on mammals, and some of them had maybe thought about doing some primate tours, but it was I think it was always as a consequence of birds. It wasn't as anything that was like, it wasn't the mammals that were like the central part of it. It was always like a side thing, you know, like they were watching birds and then a tapir would cross the street. So yeah, or the road, right? And we said, let's try it. I mean, it was complicated. Getting started or getting a business started anywhere is difficult. When you're doing it in a country that has been that has such a like long history of violence, it's even, you know, more challenging, I think. And I was really scared of going into places, into regions that had been always like I had only heard of these places either in the news because they were I don't know, some massacre happened or bombarded or no, but they were always associated with bad news and the internal war in Colombia that, you know, we lived for 60 plus years. So I was hesitant, but the peace agreement had just been signed and things seemed...
What year was this, Claudia?
The peace agreement was signed in 2016, I think November or
Okay.
like late 2016. And we were like a year after that. So everything looked promising. Like in our first attempts to like travel and see these places, I was really scared. Rob didn't have that, like, how do you say, like apprehension? Is that, yeah, like he was like just free spirit traveling around Colombia, like having fun. And I was always like, no, we can't go here. We can't go there. This is very, very scary. In the 80s and 90s, you would never even dreamed of going in your car to the Pacific coast or to valleys that are created in the middle of the Andean range, or, you know, there are places that you always knew they must be amazing, but you could never dream. It was completely out of the picture. So it was a process of, I can't say that it was very long. It was just, you know, months of us traveling and getting to know people until we said, yeah, definitely we can do it. So we set it up and we started WAC, and we started with birds because that was the connections that Rob had in the UK. So, and it was also like the wildlife part of Colombia that was open to tourism. For even during the horrible times, birders would go to Colombia despite everything, no? Because it's such an amazing place. We started WAC with bird watching, but always with a plan that as soon as we got that started, we were gonna go into the mammal watching. We built our website, and we always had like a mammal bit of it saying like coming soon. And I think that's how the mammal watchers from your side got in touch with us, right?
Yes, I think that's probably right.
Presumably, you were going into some of these areas which had been at war for many years, and then you rock up and say, "Hey, I want to see the birds and the primates, whatever." Were they just really welcoming from the start, or did they think this was a little bit weird? Because let's face it, most of the world thinks that we're weird. But how did they react to you?
It was weird. Obviously, who doesn't like to see a mammal? I mean, I don't see anyone who wouldn't get, like super happy to see a mountain tapir or to see a monkey. But really, they were focused on birds, right? That's what they wanted to see. So people in the regions, even in the regions that were always in conflict before the peace agreement, they were used to seeing birders. When we arrived with the mammal idea, they were like, yeah, sure, there are monkeys, but why? Like, what do you want with them? Like, why do you want to go there? I can't think of one place that we haven't had doors open and people being very helpful and giving us ideas. And there's always people saying, oh, I have an uncle or a cousin or a neighbor that, talks about a monkey that's like this and that. And no, so people are open to the idea, but they do think it's weird, or they did think. Maybe it's changed now. People are much more aware that there are tourists that are looking for mammals, that people love to see monkeys and they would pay for it as well as they would pay to see a bird. It was just very, it was a foreign concept in some places. In other places, like, it's not that they weren't welcoming, but it was a little bit more weird that someone like Rob, being a foreigner, would go there, maybe on his own. And I was always in Bogota on the phone, like making arrangements like transport and hotels and guides and translating. So it was weird that he would get to these places and ask for a monkey, and on his own. Like, people were like, why are you here? You're gonna get kidnapped. No, like, this is just not the right place for you to be on your own. But we never had any issue. We never had, not even like a minor like scare. No, nothing to be scared about. And then he started being recognized by the local community, and they would laugh because he didn't, he could not laugh at him, laugh with him, about the what he was doing. The crazy Brit that's looking for monkeys. It was lovely. I don't have anything bad to say about it. Another challenge we had was trying to get guides into really looking for mammals instead of birds. For years, they had been, learning how to spot birds, how to identify birds, and how to just work with bird watchers. And this was completely new for them. So when Rob and I used to go together on recce's, and even after, when we would take clients with us, it was a real challenge. Like, we had to really talk them into, hey, forget about birds. Don't point at the birds. Don't look for them. Don't get distracted by the amazing birds that you have around or you're hearing. Just look for the mammals. And it's been a process. People still think we're a bit, in some areas, people still think that, it's odd and it's weird that, we're just looking for mammals. But we've done a good job, I think. In many places, we already have like one guy that we've worked with the most, that he's more open to what we're doing. Unfortunately, there aren't many mammal guides, like anyone that has enough interest to just learn about mammals. So that's still our challenge. I mean, we keep working on that, and it's just the nature of the country, and it's the nature of the tourism that comes here. Colombia, we were talking about the internal war in Colombia. So I think that was like 60 plus years that we were in that struggle. And even even in those years, some birders would come. So in some areas, they would protect them. They would welcome them, protect them. And that made a real impact in families. So birding is huge here. So it's difficult to convince people that there's other type of wildlife watching or another way of having an income with wildlife that is not bird watching. Like I said, I think there are some companies that have done a little bit like in that process, but we were definitely the first company that specialized in that and that made the effort and spent time doing recce's and talking like that, like to the uncle, to the cousin, to the neighbor who, to figure out what they were talking about and then following up and making it worthwhile for them.
So a lot of the work that your company does is working with communities. And from the sounds of it, they were fairly open to collaborating because of all the mad birders who had been before. And so I guess mammal watching was a fairly natural step. How big an impact do you see that tourism has? I mean, can it basically really halt hunting in an area where hunting was taking place?
It definitely has an impact. I think when the pandemic came, it kind of broke the process that we were trying to do or what we were trying to achieve. We wanted the company to grow enough for it to be able to support local communities and conservation. And that was also a lot to do with like the political climate at the moment. Like after the peace agreement was signed, the government we're doing a lot of efforts into making wildlife tourism an alternative for those communities who were part of the armed conflict and they weren't anymore. So nature tourism was promoted and has been, even, like with the changes of government, that has been a common denominator. Like governments have been trying to get wildlife or nature tourism to be an alternative for those families who were part of the war once and are not anymore. It's a whole country effort. Like from our part, like the mammals were our thing. We reached areas that maybe birders had been before, maybe not as much. And with the mammals, we were covering that side of it. I don't think the number of mammal watchers are high enough to bring a lot of income through just mammal watching. I think we still have to mix it with bird watching because the number of people who would only do mammal watching is limited. We've traveled with many of you, and but I don't think it's enough. I don't think there's more and more and more to come. So we have to mix it with birds, or we have to mix it with frogs, and I don't know. I mean, different wildlife experiences. There are some areas like special places, small patches of forest where really is the mammal who is the important, like the main character. One of the areas that we love and we try to visit as often as we can, because they have a very special monkey, the Caquetá titi. That's an endemic species for Colombia. And they live in tiny, tiny patches of forest in the Amazon, in part of the Amazon in Colombia, in a department called Caquetá. So part of the problem that we've had in this place is that US and UK advisories for travel exclude them from what they recommend. So that means travelers won't get insured if they include these areas in their itineraries. So we can't really take people that are not willing to like waive that policy. We do it with private clients. We try when people are very adventurous and they really want to see it, or they have lists, or they really, really want to see that TT. But when we work with tour operators, like bigger than us, like when we're ground handlers for bigger operators, we can't go there. So it's a huge loss for them, because we do visit other places And it would be amazing if we could go there, but yeah, it's not allowed.
So insurance companies will actually specify that within Colombia, you cannot go to X or Y place and still be covered by them. Is that correct?
I don't think it's as explicit as that, but they do operate, or they do insure based on country's advisory for travel. So the UK one is called the FCO, and if you read it, they have maps, and they have like they have yellow, red, green in the areas that they consider very dangerous. It would be yellow or red, and in the areas that they consider safe, they would be green. So you can go. Some of the yellow, they would say only go if like absolutely necessary, and obviously the red is like we do not recommend going. And that the insurance companies, base their decisions on those advisories. So yeah, we can't work in many instances that we would love to, or that we could.
This comes up often, and I don't know any tour operator who supports those maps. They always complain, and because the maps that the foreign state departments, foreign offices put out, the ones I've seen are extremely crude, with these blanket bans over huge areas of the country, when locals will tell you, well, this area is perfectly safe, and maybe 500 miles to the north it's a problem, but we're not going anywhere near that, and there's never been a problem here. So it is an issue, I know, for a lot of places, not just Colombia, and very frustrating for tour operators.
Yeah, and before the peace agreement, we wouldn't have thought of going to many of these places. After the year 2016, where these opportunities opened, we said, yes, we can go. We started going. We have been with private clients, but that's as much as we can do. We can't do anything larger. And that's not the only problem, like the advisory. The only problem is that they are the remote places. The infrastructure is very, very basic. So people that have the money to go abroad and travel and invest in a travel like this, in a trip like this, they want the minimum, I don't know, comfortable bed, private bathroom, and those places don't have anything like that. But you remember, John, when you came, we had to stay in some pretty rough places, or we stayed in houses, community houses, but we would sleep on the floor, or we would sleep or we have to kick someone out. Like the mom would say, no, kids go out, camp, no camping. And then the tourists would stay in your rooms. But that's not the average traveler that would do something like that.
But I can assure you I've stayed in many, many worse places. So it's actually quite luxurious, that trip. I guess for some people, not so.
Yeah, but infrastructure like hotels and roads, getting there, it's difficult. There are challenges still, but it is. I'm very compassionate with Colombia and those problems, because when you see the history story of Colombia, like while other Latin America's countries were investing in tourism or in sciences or in arts, sports, we were invested in war. Like everything was going towards fighting guerrillas, fighting drugs. So we're behind. We're 60 years behind most of the countries in Latin America.
So there are a number of areas. Obviously, you talked about the Titi Monkey. So that's a community area that you opened up. But you also have a great site for Andean bears. Where is that?
That is very near Bogota, like an hour, 2 hours from Bogota. It's called Chingaza National Park. We've worked with the communities around Chingaza for many years. Since we started, we've worked very closely with them. We've done, like, before we started going there and taking clients, people would say, I know watching birds is impossible. Like maybe you'll see one, but it's very don't have your hopes up. But we started like going with them and doing it systematically, doing it like staying for 4 nights, for 5 nights, going out every day, going out late afternoons, really scanning and searching. We had binoculars, we had scopes, just showing that it requires effort, it requires work, like specific work, like this is what you're looking for. They're not just gonna cross your path and that's how you see a bear. No, you have to really do the work. And that was something new for many guides. We have a very, very good relationship with the people working in, not the national park itself, but the community has a concession to handle tourism within that park. And it's those communities that we have worked with. This is one of those places that I really recommend going in Colombia. I know you can see bears in Ecuador as well. This experience of going into the Paramo and going into this park, it's a landscape that you can't see anywhere else in the world. It's the community that will take you to the bear. It's them who will talk to you about the bear, talk to you about the environment, the habitat, what's happening. And that makes us very proud. Like that's the most impact I think that we've had. Community has told us that they've learned a lot and that they never thought they would be doing this type of work if it hadn't been for us going there and doing that work.
Yeah. And is that also the place where you see quite a few mountain tapirs? Because I remember Venkat went with you, didn't he? And he had some amazing pictures of mountain tapirs.
Yeah, no, it's in a different place, completely different place. Yeah.
Right.
That's also a place where it's a very good bird watching spot, very popular. And birders had seen tapirs for many years, like reporting in their lists. There was always like, and a tapir after the 200 birds. And yeah, we started going there with clients and staying with a local family, local woman and her husband who have a little house at the bottom of a trail. And tapir just started visiting her for the last few years, but she never thought that would be of interest to anyone. And she now that's now like the best place to see the mountain tapir.
Is there a certain time of year people should go if they want to see them?
No, they're there year round.
Oh, wow. That's good to know. Handy. And another one of my favorite places when we came over in 2020 was, I think, probably the first place we went to see ornate titties, again on a small finca, not too far from Bogota.
That is, it's called Llanos. That's the region. Is on like the eastern plains of Colombia, and also a very popular spot for bird watchers. In our research, we started just identifying where the endemic monkeys were, and we found a few trails where the ornate titi was. But then as time went on, we found this finca that had they have cattle, they have some, I think they have banana plantations, and I mean it's the forest has been cut down a lot, and there's also just a tiny bit of forest where they knew they had these monkeys, and somebody from the community realized that those were very special monkeys, that they were endemic and that they needed to look after them because there isn't a lot of habitat for them anymore. And she was a woman. She's not a biologist. I think she's a designer, or I don't know, nothing to do with science. But she realized that this was happening, and she talked to the family and she said, please don't tear that forest down. We'll try to get funds and try to get you involved in some kind of tourism project that will support, and so that you don't have to keep taking the forest down. And we started supporting the project, and and this is part of like the green FCO areas, like everyone can go. There's no problem, like safety issues. So we go there often. There are other places where we could see it. There are other roads and paths where we can see it, because it's not local to that finca only. But we keep going there, and we have been encouraging them to like charge for entrances and promote themselves within the birding companies, so that, because they have amazing birding as well. So yeah, I mean, this is one of those that we have like stuck with, trying to get them to promote themselves more within other companies. And it's one of those places that we visit probably in every tour. I don't know if you remember, but it used to be just like the older lady of the house, and she would just open like the wire gate that you would come in, and that's it. And on our last visit, they now prepare coffee, and they have biscuits, and they have a whole setup of chairs and tables, and the lady like tells her story, and now the daughter is involved, and she's now the one answering the WhatsApp or the emails, and like scheduling the visits. And yeah, they've organized themselves really to make a living of that.
Yeah, that's great. And the other thing I remember was the pride they had in there, in that they were protecting these monkeys. It seemed to be a real, like a vocation. It wasn't just about the money. It was they were really, really proud of that their farm was so important from a mammal conservation point of view, which I love to see.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have
There's
any idea whether the population of monkeys is increasing on the land, or has no one really counted them?
I don't think there's anyone doing any work with them, but I know for experience that they're looking after them very well. They're looking after that piece of forest, and they've seen the value. Like they know it's it's worth it.
Yeah, heartwarming stories. So, Claudia, as we've discussed, lots of bird watchers have been to Colombia, but not that many mammal watchers. So if you were to talk to mammal watchers, what would you recommend as particular highlights from the country?
Well, I think I have a very special place in my heart for the Andean bear. I just think that it's an incredible experience, because it's not just the bear, but it's the whole habitat, it's the whole national park, and it's the fact that the community are so well organized to do that as a tourism, with tourists. I mean, as an income, as a way of getting income out of protecting wildlife. So I think and the park is very, very beautiful. So I do recommend that immensely.
And are there any places where people can see some of the more unusual cats, wild cat?
Yeah, when we were talking like this last question about communities, I thought about the oncilla. You must have seen on reports and on social media that I think it was a year ago or a year and a half ago, maybe two, that a little oncilla started visiting a garden that a woman had set up for birds. It's a very, very popular destination for bird watchers. And a cat started, or something, no, she didn't know what it was, just a creature started appearing and feeding on her chickens. And she's a very, very special person. She has an incredible connection with wildlife, and she just wanted to see what was happening and what it was, and she just let it be for a while until the creature had eaten too many of her chickens. Then she started being like more worried and interested and trying to see what it was. And then she realized it was a small cat. She reached out to her biologist friends, and with like cell phone pictures, like bat pictures and just descriptions, and until they said that's an oncilla. It's a very rare sighting. And yeah, she's been having visits from the cat for, I'm not sure if it's a year and a half or 2 years. People have tried to, I mean, people have been very critical of her, of what she's doing, because it's a wild cat, and it keeps going, but it disappears for months. So she's sure that the cat is wild. I mean, it's not her pet. She doesn't have she doesn't have the cat as in her house or tied, or he just goes whenever he wants to to stop him from feeding on her chickens, she does give him some food. She when she feeds the tourists, she has like the fish heads, and she started giving those fish heads that would have been gone to the trash otherwise. She just they're there. He gives them to the cat. She gives them to the cat, and he visits every once in a while. It's not very predictable when he's gonna go. Sometimes he gets lost for 2 months, and then he gets back all like scruffy and like yeah, he was he was fighting, and then he goes for a few days, and then he disappears again. Yeah, but she has defended herself like all these months, and explaining to people that she's not handling the cat. She's not doing anything for him to stay there. Like he comes and goes, and yeah, I mean, and it's not just that. Like that's the mammal, because we're talking about mammal watching, but she has the same story with so many animals that she's just looking after, and yeah, it's just out of her heart, and it's given her a way of living, and it's given her a way of living very different from the rest of her family. The rest of her family are they have cattle, or they're in agriculture, and they always said like, what are you doing with those animals? Like you should get a proper job. And she's like, no, this is my proper job. And these days she makes a better living than everyone else in her family through wildlife and through looking after animals. And her younger and older brothers look up to her, and yeah, they know that they were wrong all those years back, and now they admire her, and they have her as like the hero of the family.
Wow. And why are people critical? Is it because she feeds the oncilla, or that's it?
Yeah, I mean, because she feeds the oncilla with the fish heads that she gets as leftovers.
Right.
And they say that she's baiting the animal, that it's going to be harmful for the animal if it gets used to humans, and then it's going to get killed somewhere else. Or yeah, I don't know. I mean, people, there are many things around that.
Yeah, the debate around baiting, yes, but
yeah.
Yeah,
and
okay.
they've tried to get like authorities involved, and like really ask authorities to capture the animal. That's nonsense. I mean, the animal isn't doing anything. Nobody's doing any harm to the animal. The animal is not doing any harm. It's a tiny cat. He would be feeding on her chickens otherwise, and she can't afford it. And he's still wild. I mean, he goes away for months, and then he comes back, and he spends a couple of hours one day, and then he gets back the following day for an hour. And yeah, so I just think it's an interaction between wildlife and humans, and you can't do anything about it. You can't avoid that. You can't criticize it. Yeah, I think, yeah, especially knowing the work that she's doing, that's her livelihood. She has been teaching the communities around her. She has been teaching her whole family. She has had so much impact in so many people that really is, yeah, nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. She sounds like someone who's certainly doing much more good than harm. And I'm very glad to hear that cat is still going strong, because I remember it was about a year or so ago. It was pretty beaten up, and there were some pictures, and popular opinion on social media was, oh, it's not going to last long. It's obviously not long for this world, and yet it's still going strong. So
yeah,
very
people
good
were
to
saying,
know.
yeah, maybe it's dying. That's why he came to that house,
Yeah.
and why he's like, because he was all scruffy, and sometimes he appears full of porcupine spines all over. Then he goes away for 2 months, and he's back with no spines.
Yeah, fish heads are much safer.
So by this point, I imagine you've seen a lot of really good Colombian mammals. What are some of your main targets, the main species that you still have to see?
Charles, I've seen many, but sometimes I think that I've seen more than I have, because I keep talking about them so much, and I talk to the guides and to the families and communities, and organize the tours and I talk about a species so much that I forget that have I seen that? Have I not seen it? I don't know. There are a couple that I definitely haven't seen, that I've been in those places, but every time I just miss them. That's the Colombian woolly monkey and the golden-backed wakari. Those two have been horrible. Like I go to the places, people have seen them the day before, the day after, but not when I go. So I've missed those and I really want to see them. I would also love to see a jaguarundi. I haven't seen it. And obviously we have these company nemesis that we share with John.
Yes.
The pacarana is one of them.
Bush dog.
And the bush dog, yeah.
Oh, those two. Yeah.
Oh, everyone's nemesis, right?
Yeah.
Are there places where you can see jaguars in Colombia, or is it pretty difficult?
No, yes, there are. There is a very large, in Spanish it's called, or in Colombia it's called hato. It's like a cattle farm. They're very, very large. It's called Hato La Aurora. It's in the department called Casanare. And they've been doing conservation work with different nonprofits, one of them being Panthera. And they created a way of, or they created some areas for the jaguars to be. And yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, we've had some pretty awesome sightings there. And they work with tourists from all over the world. They've been doing it for years. Like that's something, obviously, I don't think it's as, you can compare it with a Pantanal, but they're very reliable during the dry season, like no December through to March, especially
wow.
I think January and February. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Send us a trip report. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Claudia, it's been a real pleasure to see you again and to hear about the work you're doing. As I'm sure I would have told you, I first went to Colombia 20 years ago, and it was my first time in South America. The country then was widely seen as, much more dangerous than it really was, and than it is today. And I was very nervous. I had arranged a trip at short notice, but I left Colombia absolutely in love with the country and the people. It's one of my favorite countries in the world. Not just for the wildlife, but for the way people are, and the warmth and it's just a lovely, lovely place to spend time. And I'm so glad that you're helping introduce the world's mammal watchers to Colombia and so many different parts of it and so many different species. It's a fabulous place for wildlife, and it's a wonderfully important job you're doing. Thank you so much, and keep up the wonderful work that you're, Rob, are doing. Keep converting bird watching guides to looking for mammals. I think that's extremely important. And if you learn how to do that, we can export that to the rest of the world. Thank you, Claudia.
Oh, thank you, John. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you, finally, Charles. I want to say, John, that you have been an amazing part of that. I mean, we're doing the groundwork, but you have been an amazing ambassador for mammal watchers everywhere and mammals. And and you've been a great help for us in our business, in talking about Colombia, talking about the possibilities that people have here. And I don't think we would be here if it hadn't been for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, yeah, and thank you, Claudia. Some of your stories about how the communities have just really taken to protecting some of the species on their land is absolutely heartwarming. So yeah, thank you for making so much of that happen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share these stories. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Claudia.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.